3 FM 92.7. We're coming to you live from our studio here on the John Hammond Street in Accra, also live on our numerous affiliates across the country. Around the world, we're streaming live on 3news.com. Download the TuneIn app from the Google Play, Apple iOS Store, and listen to us on the go. Coming up this afternoon, we're live to the Volta region, where the Volta River Authority says it's ended the controlled spillage of the Akosombo Dam more than a month since valves were opened to spill excess water. This afternoon, we asked what this means to residents both in the Lower Volta Basin and persons above it. Child Rights International, meanwhile, says he has recorded incidents of sexual and physical abuse on some children in safe havens resulting from the dam spillage. Young men still hiding in bushes in the outskirts of Garu and Timpani for fear of the return of the military following the raid there on Saturday. Assemblyman in Garu says the injured are refusing to return home for medical treatment. Meanwhile, there is a strong push for an independent parliamentary probe into the incident.
I am trusting that the members of parliament in that area will definitely do something. And if they raise it on the floor of parliament, all of us will contribute to the debate to ensure that at least this country remains peaceful and people will be in their lane. Whatever it is, the Constitution is very clear as the role of the army and the role of the police and the role of the Ghana Immigration Service.
We have details for you if you stay with us for the next 30 minutes. Pleasure that you could be a part of this afternoon's bulletin. It's streaming live on Facebook. Our handle 3FM927. Let's get straight into the details now, because the Volta River Authority says it has ended the controlled spillage of the Akosombo Dam. The VRA has over the last month been spilling excess water from the hydroelectric dam following a rise in the water levels, which threatened to compromise the integrity of the facility. The result has been widespread flooding to over 9 districts in the Lower Volta Basin. More than 40,000 people have been affected, even as government continues efforts to provide relief and support to the displaced. The VRA in a statement said it still remains committed to providing relief to them. We'll work the telephone lines and raise a member of the organization for a conversation following this statement. But we know, or it's been established all throughout the last weeks where we've sustained coverage on the development there, that as of the 9 districts that have suffered as a result of the dam spillage within the Lower Volta Basin, there are those upwards of the dam as well who have been equally affected, as the Volta River, which is flowing into the Volta Lake where the dam is situated, has overflowed its banks and entered communities. Areas like Buipe, Germany, and the likes have all suffered, and we've continued to bring you reports of them. As to what exactly the situation is, let's touch base from there, starting from up north in the Buipe area, where we've also extensively provided coverage as to the overflowing of the river bank and how houses were submerged. Christopher Mwako is my colleague there. Let's get an assessment of the situation now that the VRA says it has stopped spillage. Chris, many thanks for speaking to us. What is the situation now? Is it the case that the water has begun to recede and the river is not overflowing its banks any longer?
Yes, Mawuena, the water levels have begun to recede. However, most of the homes or houses that were inundated by the flood waters are still in the flood waters, and we're hoping that within next week and next 2 weeks, the whole place, the water would have receded totally for the displaced residents to get back to their homes. The water levels at the Volta Lake itself, the main lake itself, is not increasing again, so it is not overflowing into the communities, even though they still use the canoe as the major means of transport to cross from one end to the other within the communities that were flooded.
And so for now, water levels are receding and life is gradually returning to normal. What about the persons who have been affected? What is their current state?
Okay, so they are still occupying the temporal structures, temporal accommodation that have been provided for them by the Central Gonja District Assembly. The Paramount Chief of the Dupe Traditional Area has also allocated about 20 acres of land in the interim for those who have been greatly affected to go and start putting up their structures there so that they will move from the affected areas, because it has become obvious that it has become an annual ritual. So those who have been greatly affected, right, when the water levels completely recede, the land will be cleared for them to go and start putting up some infrastructure. So what he's saying is that organizations and individuals must come to support these persons to be able to put up their accommodation at a safer ground where they will not be affected by the floods again.
So they are being advised not to reconstruct in the affected areas.
Definitely, Mawuena, because the chief has provided a land for them to go and begin reconstruction at that particular new site. It means that they are going to leave their current areas, because it has become an annual thing that every year when the water levels increase and overflow into the community, definitely these areas are flooded. So in order to prevent future reoccurrence of these floods, the Paramount Chief has allocated some parcels of land uphill for the affected victims within that particular area, especially the Bupi Bridge area, to relocate to a different area.
Right then, Chris, many thanks. Let's connect with Yvonne Nikwe in the Eastern region as well. Also, one of the areas where the river continued to overflow its banks and affected them. Yvonne, a similar situation where the water has begun to recede?
Exactly. So for part of the Eastern region that was affected by two situations, we're seeing the water levels recede, and so the residents who are affected are beginning to feel some sort of relief. But the issues that is upcoming is to where they would have to move now. For those who have built structures, whether temporary or permanent, at buffer zones or very close to the water lake, they're being asked to move away from the cliff. Some people have places to sleep, but others do not have lands to build on. And so probably the tripartite body made up of the district assemblies, the VRA, and chiefs in the area would have to quickly see to it to ensure that those who don't have lands in the upper stream do have lands to build on, as they take those decisions to ensure that they don't build by the waterway.
Right then, Yvonne, also many thanks for those details from the Eastern region as well. So two areas where the rivers were overflowing their banks, the water level is receding, and so you can begin to get an understanding as to why the Volta River Authority says that it is no longer spilling from the Akosombo Dam and will continue in that light this time to the Volta region, because there's an interesting development that's coming through from Child Rights International, who say that they've picked up incidents of sexual and physical abuse on some children in safe havens, and they want the Ghana Education Service to develop an education recovery plan for the integration of some 17,000 plus children. Bright Appiah is the executive director of Child Rights International. Let's just pick thoughts from him. Many thanks, Mr. Appiah. A worrying development, you'd say. What has been the assessment, and what have you found out, really, in terms of this revelation that you're bringing to the fore this afternoon?
Yeah, the back of the recovery plan that we're calling for has to do with the fact that if you look at the report that we've gathered so far, it shows that 71 schools have been destroyed or taken over by the spillage, and these schools ranges between the kindergarten to GHS. Then we have this, because of the 71 schools are no more in operation, It has affected over 19,743 children who currently are not in school. And again, you would also realize about 9,000 of these children could not retrieve any of the educational materials when the spillage happened. So all these put together need that you will not just treat the process as a normal process for children to resume school, but you need a recovery plan that will spell out the entry activities, the main activities, and then also the exiting activities. So if you are able to do this, then it will help you to situate the children in an environment that they will consider conducive. Because when we also did assessment on the trauma and the psychological needs of the children, you will see that about 95% of the children were reported to have experienced anxiety and sadness. So returning them back to that environment, depending on the assessment that they will do on the structure, would also require that some kind of psychological support must go into the entry point, and then how children are going to be engaged, in the classroom so that they can recover. So once we are able to achieve this, we will clearly make the environment conducive for children to learn. But if we don't do that, then we're going to have difficulties in terms of how children will consider the environment conducive and the capacity that we will have to absorb the learning that the teachers are going to teach them. And then even in the future, what kind of blueprint are we giving them in terms of what needs to be done in the moving forward? So the recovery plan is very crucial in integrating our children to school.
And on the abuse, the sexual abuse concern as well, what exactly are these? Do we know the individuals who you say have been abusing children? Do we know these persons? What actions are being taken in that light?
Yeah, at this level, we recorded about 12 children, which make up of 0.62% of the children who reported instances of physical abuse. There wasn't in further interrogation point to the fact that there wasn't any contact in terms of defilement and rape. So what we're currently doing is that our eyes are on the ground. Some of the children were able to point out 2 or 3 people, and then we are monitoring them. And then we've also had a discussion with some of the officials from NADMO to also put their ears on the ground. So once these numbers we can control the numbers. That's what exactly we are doing, and we are hoping that it doesn't escalate. And if it does, then we would engage a formal system to be able to treat it as a criminal offense.
Right then, Ms. Appiah, many thanks for providing those details for us.
Thank you.
That's Bright Appiah, is the Executive Director of Child Rights International, speaking to us this afternoon a bit more on the flooding situation, but from a different perspective with regards to an educational plan to help the situation currently in the affected areas, and then as well cases of abuse of children. Say they are monitoring and they'll scale it up to the relevant authorities as and when necessary. We're moving away from this and taking you to the Upper East region now, because the young are still fleeing, refusing to return to the Garu township following the military raid there on Saturday, which left scores injured. There have been growing demands for responses from the National Security Ministry over the operation, with the MP for the area demanding a full-scale probe. As the calls heighten, young people are refusing to return to the township for fear of being assaulted again. Bartholomew Asori, an assemblyman in the Garu area, he tells 3FM he is hiding in the bush still for the fear of the military returning.
So they said they will come back for us. That this is the first phase, they will come back for us. According to my wife who was in the house, they said they will come back for us. And because of that, I know a whole lot of us, the youth, are sleeping in the bush, because if you have seen what has happened to our colleagues who have been hospitalized, some who have been treated and discharged, and others who have refused to go to seek medical care at the health facilities. You don't need anybody to convince you that you should come back to the house. You should be hiding somewhere in the bush.
They said they'll come back for you.
Yes.
To come and do what?
That is the first phase, and they will be coming back for the second phase. So with this message that has gotten into our ears, I think it's advisable to actually continue living in the bush than to return home to face the second phase of it. We don't know how it will look like. See in the first phase.
So you are currently in the bush?
Yes, please.
And so that's Bartholomew Asori, an assembly member. He adds that young boys as little as 6 were all assaulted during the dawn raid.
It is not me directly, but a brother.
A brother?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, so when the alarm blew and everybody was running for his or her dear life, I think the son was still in the room, and they broke into the room, and then they asked him to bring the phones and the money. So, and as of the father, he said he doesn't know where his father is. So they took the monies away and the phones away and told the boy that he's a scammer. But for me, because of the alarm, I also decided to run away because I don't know what it was for. Until later on, it was discovered that it was the Ghana Armed Forces that were brutalizing people in the community. So after I have run away, they came and woke up my 6-year-old boy and beat him up and handed him over to the mother in my absence. So I think with the attacks on the people, they have actually sustained various degrees. And as I'm talking to you now, I'm not in the house. I don't.
So that's the assemblyman for the Garu Township speaking there about how persons as little as 6 were all assaulted during that particular operation by the military and national security. Meanwhile, there's a strong push, like I've been telling you, for an independent parliamentary probe into the incident. It comes despite a call by the Defense Minister Dominic Nitu for improved relations between the military and the civilian population in the northern part of the country. Dominic Nitu says there's a need to build trust between the military and the rest of the citizenry in the Boku Township.
There was some miscommunication somewhere along the line and mistrust. It's one of the things that we are trying to resolve. Because there's some bit of mistrust in the general Boku area, people try to assume things that may not be right, and maybe because they don't have the initial information may try to do things that may not be right. But we are concerned about that mistrust, and we're taking steps to address them. So we are taking steps to ensure that Boku becomes very peaceful.
Defense Minister Dominic Nitu, a member of Parliament's Defense and Interior Committee, Peter Tobu, believes a probe into the matter is in the interests of the nation.
I am trusting that the members of Parliament in that area will definitely do something. And if they raise it on the floor of Parliament, all of us will contribute to the debate to ensure that at least this country remains peaceful and people will be in their lane. Whatever it is, the Constitution is very clear as the role of the army and the role of the police and the role of the Ghana Immigration Service and the role of giving national security. Until that is done, I don't think that we need to try it. Let's speak out and correct our errors because we need to learn from what is wrong so that tomorrow we don't repeat.
Peter Tobu is a member of the Defense and Interior Committee. He's also a member of Parliament for Wa West as well. We're taking you to Parliament because the House is reconvening today. And amongst many things, the budget statement will be presented to Parliament, and then the IGP probe, the committee, the 7-member ad hoc committee put together by the Speaker is also amongst many things expected to present their report. Let's take you live to Parliament and speak to Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Komla Kluche for a bit more on the first day of sitting. Komla, many thanks for joining us. How has the House come together for a sitting that should have happened quite a long time ago?
Well, I mean, they are just putting themselves together to start proceedings for today. There's official resumption of Parliament today. But let me just break to you just news that is just coming a short while ago. The majority has hinted that they will hold the Volta River Association before the House to explain circumstances leading to the spillage of the Akosombo Dam, which is affected communities downstream the lower Volta Basin. For the majority, well, there's a need for the VRA to give a proper explanation, also in terms of the level of engagement they have had with the communities before the spillage was done. And so they have indicated that, yes, indeed, they will drag the Volta River Authority before the House to explain these matters. You recall that the minority NDC MPs have been pushing for this. Even the chairman of their party, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, and the general secretary have indicated that there's a need for the VRA to explain circumstances or questions leading to the spillage. And so this joining by the majority gives some impetus to the quest by the minority to have a VRA really come before the House to explain the circumstances leading to the spillage.
I reckon this is something the minority will be backing strongly.
Of course, there will be no objection to this since in the past they have indicated that their intention to do so. And so, among the many things that they have disagreed on, this appears to be one that they are willing to have a certain commitment with the majority to be able to pursue on this. And so maybe this might bring some respite to the people who have been affected by this.
Kamala, many thanks for those details. That's Kamala Kluche, a parliamentary affairs correspondent with a bit more details from Parliament, and the news that's coming through from him is that the majority side of the House say they will lead the charge in hauling before it the Volta River Authority to answer questions in relation to the spillage of the Akosombo Dam, a call that the minority, according to him, is going to back. We're going to turn our focus now to politics as we inch even closer to Saturday, November 4th, where the governing New Patriotic Party will be voting to elect a flag bearer for the 2024 general elections. One of the leading contenders in that race is Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, and he's currently wrapping up his campaign in the Upper East region, and the Vice President will be meeting over 8,000 delegates at a rally in Bolgatanga to solicit for vote, and regional constituency and executives of the party from various parts and party faithfuls are expected to join in support. Already pictures and videos that we've been seeing indicate that they've been moving already to gather in wait of the Vice President. We'll connect shortly there and speak to my colleague Tanko Mohammed Rabiu rather for details, but still in relation to this and the calls for an investigation into claims made by NPP flag bearer aspirant Kennedy Japan over being offered some $800 million to step down from the party's presidential race has increased, but member of the Bawumia campaign team Nana Komia and former ambassador says that the allegations should be cast aside. That's what Nana Komia has been saying, but Sam Piyale believes otherwise. They've been reacting to this on TV3's New Day.
It's unfortunate that the NPP primaries for the flag bearership has degenerated to this extent. And all of these serious allegations have been made in an attempt to impugn people's integrity with no shred of evidence. The sums of monies that have been mentioned, the $800 million, for somebody to step down. It doesn't sound credible at all. This kind of allegations against your co-aspirants without any proof whatsoever is damaging to the campaign, the campaign itself. I would wish that we just don't let it lie in the domain of accusations and denials and counter accusations.
Okay.
Ro, you know what $800 million will mean to this economy now? And these accusations have been thrown out there, no investigations.
Somebody says that $1 million for road contractors, he's going to ECO. $1 million, he's going to ECO. $800 million, they have not disqualified those who are making it, or they have not sanctioned anybody. So, what does the MPP present?
That's Ambassador Sampi Yali ending that voice clip earlier he heard. Nana Komia is a member of the Baumia campaign team. Let's take you to the Upper East region, Bolgatanga. To be specific, Tanko Mohammed Rabiu is joining us with some details from, don't want to call it the final rally, but wrapping up of the campaign of the Vice President. Tanko, many thanks. Just talk to us as to exactly what's happening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mawuena. Currently, the Vice President is yet to arrive at the Jubilee Park, where it's expected to meet about 8,000 delegates who are expected to cast their vote for the region on November 4th. So after now, other activities are going on, expecting the Vice President to arrive, Mawuena.
Other activities like what?
Other which is singing and dancing and receiving guests at the venue. So currently, nothing much, but just organizing the place for the Vice President to arrive.
Right then, Tanko, that's my colleague Tanko Mohammed Rabiu in the Upper East region with a bit more details there for us as to the Vice President who's been waited upon to arrive. I will stay with the politics because NPP presidential aspirant Dr. Usu Akoto has committed to earmark 10% of the country's budget to finance an agricultural transformation agenda. According to him, not only will this meet the African Union's development threshold, but will ensure that the country reaps the required dividend from agriculture to boost its development. He's been speaking and hoping that the delegates will vote for him in an exclusive interview yet to be aired.
I see the morale in the party very low amongst the activists. And I saw this before the election of 2020, and I thought that would cost us votes. And it did cost us votes, where we, from 169 constituencies in Parliament, we came to 137. Now we are at par with the NDC for the first time in the Fourth Republic. So my skepticism was confirmed by the results of the election, not only the constituencies, but also the presidential results. And I'm saying it's a result of what is happening within the party, especially the grassroots, who I very much sense that there's disappointment, disenchantment. Yenyashi. You go all over the country, and that is what you hear, at least what I hear. Okay, so the vision and ultimately the result is because people's expectation, having worked so hard for this party, that their personal circumstances will change. And you've seen that it hasn't changed, and this is why they are complaining. Right. And that affects the morale. So if you want to break the eight, at least we should be honest and open to talk about that and what we are going to do differently. Right. To give them the courage and the inducement to campaign for us come next year.
That's Dr. Owusu Akoto speaking there, ending this afternoon's edition of the bulletin here on 3FM 92.7. As always, a lot more news if you log on to 3news.com. I am Mawuena Egbeta. Bismarck Awusa is here ready and waiting with the very latest from the world of business. But the bulletin was streaming live on Facebook and on Twitter as well. As always, like I always say, a lot more news if you log on to 3news.com. Many thanks for listening.
Hello, good afternoon. It's time now for Business Daily with me, Bismarck Awusa. Coming up, government unlikely to review taxes in 2024 budget following IMF conditionalities. We'll hear from an economist.
Well, I think the budget presentation will largely mimic the IMF focus, and it will be very difficult for the government to actually relax the taxes, even though that is the opinion.
Also, the Institute for Energy Security, IES, projects fuel prices to remain unchanged from November 1 due to marginal drop in price of finished products on the international market. Plus, CD to remain stable against dollar this week, trading at 12 cedis, 06 pesos to the dollar. I am Bismarck Hausa. Will bring you details of our headlines and many other stories shortly. Thanks for your company. Now to our very first story, economist Professor John Gachi says it is not likely government will review taxes in the 2024 budget statement to be read by the finance minister following economic reform measures proposed by the IMF. A pre-budget survey report by KPMG indicates that many businesses were adversely impacted by some taxes such as e-levy, growth and sustainability levy, as well as the COVID-19 levy. Many business groups, including Ghana Union of Traders Association, Traders Advocacy Group Ghana, and the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana, have called on the government to review some taxes in its 2024 budget statement. These businesses argue the numerous taxes and high import duties at the country's ports have raised the cost of doing business, leading to increased prices of food and basic commodities.
We are not only traders, but we are also experts in the area, and we are giving them feedback that together we can do this. We've tried this high taxation thing, and now you literally have to force your taxes from the payments of the taxes from the payers. Try the other option, and people willingly pay, and you can make more money.
A major problem being the taxes, excessive and extortive taxes that we are being made to pay. The COVID levy came as a one-purpose tax, just to help combat the COVID disease. Now, fortunately, COVID is no more there, so it needs to be out of the table.
They also argue the situation has contributed to high rate of goods being smuggled into the country. However, economist Professor John Gachi thinks government can do little to help these importers and traders due to IMF conditionalities.
The budget presentation will largely mimic the IMF focus, and it will be very difficult for the government to actually relax the taxes, even though that is the opinion by the market players, even though that is the opinion by the KPMG survey that was published recently. So there will be some attempt to demonstrate that we are trying to target some productive areas to incentivize, but that overall may not be the solution.
And that was Professor John Gachi, economist at the University of Cape Coast Business School. And then a report read to you by my colleague Shadrach Isirifi. Moving on, the Institute for Energy Security, IES, has projected that fuel prices are likely to remain relatively unchanged on the domestic fuel market from November 1. It says this is as a result of a marginal drop in the price of finished products of petrol, diesel, and liquefied petroleum gas (LPG) on the international market, as well as the cedi's depreciation during the last 2 weeks. Per the forecast, the average price per litre of petrol will remain at 12 cedis 35 pesos, whilst diesel will be pegged at 15 cedis 9 pesos per litre. The price of liquefied petroleum gas (LPG) will also remain at 12 cedis 9 pesos per kilogram. Although the cedi depreciated by 1.32% to the US dollar, the Institute for Energy Security, IES, is projecting that export prices of key market products will be maintained in the first 2 weeks of November 2023, largely due to the fall in international prices of the commodities. The IES alluded that data from its economic desk on the domestic foreign exchange market over the last 2 decades showed that the Ghana cedi made a loss of 1.32% against the US dollar, closing the window at 11 cedis 86 pesos to the dollar from a previous rate of 11 cedis 71 pesos. IES said the global oil supply from numerous OPEC countries in the Middle East, possibly all of them, is dependent on how far the Israel-Hamas conflict spreads. On the demand side of the oil price equation, there is still concern about China's economic development prospects, which has been the world's largest yearly gross crude oil importer since 2017. Brent crude prices started increasing amidst calls for sanctions on Iran when Hamas first struck Israel. The prices have since slowed down, but still react intermittently to new developments from the Middle East. Now, the cedi is expected to remain relatively stable against the US dollar this week. This is as a result of an ease in corporate demand, as well as a slight gain against the American greenback last week. The following report has more. The local currency closed stronger against the major trading currencies last week amidst the Bank of Ghana's intervention in the market and reduced demand from importers and corporate institutions. It gained 0.62% week on week against the dollar, reaching a mid-rate of 12 cedis 02 pesos to $1. It also advanced 0.86% against the pound, whereas it remained unchanged against the euro on the retail market. The Bank of Ghana sold $20 million to the bulk oil distribution companies and $3.8 million on the spot market. This stamped out some foreign exchange demand, aiding the cedi's performance last week. On the interbank market, the situation was, however, calm. Meanwhile, the cedi has lost about 11.73% in value to the dollar on the retail market since January 1, 2023. This is compared with 22% depreciation on the interbank market. You are reminded that this is still Business Daily with me, Bismarck Ausa. Moving on to some other stories, the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP, is a leading energy think tank, is calling for regional linkages between African countries to enhance solar cell production and energy usage. ACEP knows that many African countries possess the minerals needed for solar production but lack the financial resources and technical skills to develop the value chain. Mabel Akwe is Senior Policy Analyst at ACEP.
To produce 1 gigawatt of power through the solar system requires, through our analysis, requires about $900 million. So tell me, how many companies can, even government, it's very difficult for even one government to raise such an amount. How much more the private sector? That's why we are saying that the requirement is beyond the capacity of one government. It's beyond the capacity of one country, because even the existing infrastructure will not allow us to participate in the entire value chain. Hence, the need for regional linkages, deliberate collaboration among government, deliberate collaboration among the private sector across countries to pool resources together to be able to participate. And what government can do in terms of creating the enabling environment, key is the investment in research and development, because usually it's difficult for the private sectors to do this.
That was Senior Policy Analyst at the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Mabel Akwe. Before we go, media, business, government, technology, and community leaders from across Africa, the USA, and beyond have convened in Cape Town, South Africa, to participate in the annual Africa Business Media Innovators Forum, which commenced on October 30 and expected to end on November 1. The forum is co-hosted by Chief Executive of Bloomberg Media, Scott Havens.
Given the importance of agriculture, in terms of its potential to transform this country, that we should give it special attention by making sure that at least we reach there.
We are sorry for the wrong insert, and that will be all for Business Daily with me, Bismarck Ausa. For more business stories, please log on to 3news.com. Thanks for your company.